The Council's arrogance, the Grand Assembly. The Galactic Assembly Hall floated in the void between stars, a massive structure built from crystallized neutron matter that glowed with its own inner light. Inside, representatives from 400 civilizations gathered in their designated sectors, each species separated by atmospheric barriers tailored to their biological needs. The air hummed with translation matrices converting thousands of languages into comprehensible thought patterns. At the center of the circular chamber, High Arbiter Kelvin stood upon the judgment platform. His species, the Zephyrans, had led the Galactic Council for 8,000 years. Their elongated frames and multiple sensory organs gave them an appearance of ancient wisdom, and Kelvin wore his authority like a second skin. Today he addressed the assembly with particular satisfaction in his voice. The human question has troubled this council for too long, Kelvin announced, his words rippling through the translation field. For 200 years we have watched this species expand beyond the boundaries we set. They colonize worlds without proper authorization. They develop technologies without council oversight. They question traditions that have maintained galactic peace for millennia. Murmurs of agreement swept through the chamber. The humans had indeed been problematic. They arrived in the galaxy with primitive fusion drives and wide-eyed wonder, grateful for any scrap of knowledge the elder races would share. The Council had welcomed them, assigned them a small sector of space, and expected them to remain there for at least 1,000 years while they matured as a civilization. Instead, humanity had spread like wildfire. Within 2 centuries, they occupied 300 star systems. They asked uncomfortable questions about why certain species held permanent council seats while others could never advance. They proposed reforms to ancient laws. They challenged assumptions that had gone unquestioned for thousands of years. The time has come, Kelvin continued, to remind humanity of their place in the natural order. We propose comprehensive restrictions on human expansion. No new colonies beyond their current borders. Mandatory technology sharing with council oversight, reduction of their military fleet to defensive capabilities only, and most importantly, removal of their observer status in council proceedings until they demonstrate proper respect for galactic hierarchy. Representative Zilthar of the Krygon Empire rose from his section, his armored carapace gleaming under the chamber lights. I support these measures completely. The humans show no respect for species that have guided this galaxy for eons. They act as if their 2 centuries of spaceflight equal our 20,000 years of civilization. More voices joined in support. The Viridian Collective, the Astral Communion, the Silicon Synthesis, one after another. Ancient civilizations voiced their approval. The humans had made themselves unpopular by refusing to accept their place as newcomers. The elders warning in, the shadowed observation gallery reserved for retired council members, Elder Torvax watched the proceedings with growing unease. His species, the Dramek, were warriors by nature, with thick-scaled hide and powerful limbs built for combat. He had seen more battles than anyone else in the chamber, and he carried scars from encounters that most present could not imagine. Torvax remembered the first contact with humanity. He had been there, 200 years ago, when their crude vessels stumbled into explored space. He remembered their excitement, their curiosity, their eagerness to learn. He also remembered the incident 30 years later, when a territorial dispute with the Krygon Empire led to brief hostilities. The Krygons had expected an easy victory. Humanity controlled only 15 systems at the time. Their ships were simple constructs, their weapons based on chemical propulsion and basic energy projection. The Krygon fleet outnumbered them 50-1, and possessed technology thousands of years more advanced. The war lasted 6 days. On the 7th day, the Krygon Empire sued for peace. Torvax had studied the battle reports extensively. The humans had not won through superior technology or greater numbers. They had won through adaptation and ruthlessness that shocked the galaxy. They analyzed Krygon tactics within hours and developed counters within days. They targeted supply lines with precision that suggested they understood Krygon logistics better than the Krygons themselves. They used unconventional strategies that no civilized species would consider, strategies that worked. When peace was declared, humanity accepted the terms graciously. They paid the required reparations, acknowledged Krygon territorial claims, and returned to their borders. To the Council, it looked like humanity had learned their lesson. To Torvax, it looked like humanity had simply decided that further conflict was not yet necessary. He had tried to warn the Council then. He had presented his analysis, shown them the implications of human tactical flexibility and strategic thinking. They had dismissed him as paranoid. Humanity seemed peaceful enough afterward. They integrated into galactic society, followed Council regulations, and appeared to accept their limited role. But Torvax had kept watching. He noticed things others overlooked. Humans took jobs throughout Council space, positions that seemed menial, but provided access to critical infrastructure. They volunteered for tasks others avoided, working on systems that elder species found too tedious to maintain. They learned languages, customs, and technologies with remarkable speed. They asked questions constantly, always learning, always adapting. It looked like integration. To Torvax, it looked like preparation. Now, as he watched the Council prepare to impose harsh restrictions on humanity, Torvax felt compelled to speak. He activated his communicator, requesting permission to address the assembly. The request caused a ripple of surprise. Torvax rarely spoke at Council sessions anymore, preferring to observe from the shadows. Kelvin acknowledged the request with visible reluctance. Elder Torvax wishes to address the Council. Though his comments are not required for this vote, we will honor his service by hearing his concerns. Torvax descended from the observation gallery, his heavy footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. He moved to the speaking platform reserved for elder statesmen, his scarred face impassive. I was present at first contact with humanity, Torvax began, his voice rough with age but still powerful. I was also present during the Krygon conflict. I have studied this species for 2 centuries, and I have reached a conclusion that troubles me deeply. He paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives. So many young faces, so many species that had never known true conflict. The galaxy had been peaceful for so long that war had become abstract, something that happened in history files but never in reality. You see humanity's expansion and call it aggression, Torvax continued. You see their questions and call it disrespect. You see their refusal to accept limitations and call it arrogance. But you do not see what I see. And what do you see, Elder? Kelvin asked, his tone suggesting polite indulgence rather than genuine interest. Patience, Torvax said simply. Strategic patience of a kind I have never encountered in any other species. Humans do not forget grievances. They do not forgive unprovoked restrictions. They simply wait for the optimal moment to respond. You suggest they would attack the Council? Silthar's voice dripped with contempt. They control 300 systems. We control 50,000. Their technology is adequate but unremarkable. Their fleet could not challenge even a minor Council member, let alone the combined might of 400 civilizations. That is precisely what makes them dangerous, Torvax replied. You assume conflict must be military. You assume superiority lies in numbers and technology. But I watched humans defeat a force 50 times their size through adaptation and unconventional thinking. I watched them study their enemy and exploit weaknesses no one else could see. What happens when they apply that same approach to the entire Council? Silence fell over the chamber. But it lasted only a moment before dismissive laughter began to spread. The Elder grows paranoid in his retirement, someone muttered. Ancient warriors see threats everywhere. Another voice added. Kelvin raised his hand for silence. Elder Torvax, we appreciate your service and respect your experience. However, the galaxy has changed since the old wars. We have systems in place to prevent the kind of conflict you describe. Our integrated economy, our shared technologies, our mutual dependencies, these ensure that no single species can threaten the stability of galactic civilization. Unless, Torvax said quietly, that species has spent 2 centuries embedding itself into every system you just mentioned. Unless they understand your economy better than you do. Unless they have worked on the technologies you depend upon. Unless they have studied those mutual dependencies and identified exactly how to exploit them. Enough, Kelvin declared, his patience exhausted. We will note your concerns in the official record. However, the Council has made its decision. The vote will proceed. Torvax returned to the observation gallery, knowing his warning would be ignored. He had done what he could. Now he would watch events unfold and hope that his fears were unfounded, though deep in his warrior's heart, he knew they were not. The vote and the departure. The vote was swift and overwhelming. 372 civilizations voted in favor of the restrictions. 20 voted against. 8 abstained. The humans would be confined, controlled, and reminded of their place in the galactic order. Human Ambassador Sarah Chen had sat silently throughout the proceedings, her expression unreadable. She was a small woman by human standards with gray hair and calm eyes that revealed nothing of her thoughts. When Kelvin formally announced the Council's decision, she rose slowly and walked to the central platform. The chamber fell silent, waiting for outrage or pleading or some emotional response. Ambassador Chen provided none of those things. "The Galactic Council has spoken," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Humanity hears your judgment. We understand your terms. We accept your decision to sever the relationship we have built over 2 centuries. Kelvin seemed surprised by her calm acceptance. "You have 30 days to recall all human personnel from Council space and return to your designated sectors. Failure to comply will result in enforcement action." "That will not be necessary," Chen replied. "We will comply fully with your demands. All humans will withdraw from Council space within the specified time frame. All joint projects will be terminated. All agreements will be dissolved. You will have exactly what you have voted for, complete separation." She turned to leave, then paused and looked directly at Elder Torvax in the observation gallery. For just a moment, something passed between them. Not hostility, not anger, just acknowledgement. She understood that he had tried to warn them. He understood that his warning had failed. "I would offer one piece of advice," Ambassador Chen said, addressing the chamber one final time. "In 30 days you will have what you demanded. I suggest you pay close attention to what that actually means." She walked out of the chamber, her footsteps the only sound in the vast space. The doors closed behind her with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. In the observation gallery, Elder Torvax closed his eyes and whispered a prayer in his ancient language. It was a prayer his people used before battles they knew would be devastating, regardless of the outcome. May wisdom find those who have lost it, and may mercy temper the justice that comes. The celebration began immediately. Council members congratulated each other on their firm stance. They discussed how the restrictions would force humanity to mature properly. They speculated about how long it would take before humans came begging to rejoin galactic society on the Council's terms. Only Torvax remained silent, watching and waiting. He knew something the others did not. When humans said they accepted your decision, they meant it. They would give you exactly what you asked for, and they would make certain you understood the full implications of your choice. The 30-day countdown had begun. The galaxy celebrated its victory over human arrogance, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity prepared to teach the Council the true meaning of patience, preparation, and consequences. The reckoning unveiled. The first signs, 27 days after Ambassador Chen's departure, the first anomaly occurred. The Viridian Collective's primary communication hub, a massive station that routed information for 2,000 star systems, simply stopped working. Not catastrophically, not all at once, but in a way that was somehow more disturbing. Every message the station processed was delivered exactly 1 hour late. Not randomly delayed, not lost, but precisely 60 minutes after it should have arrived. The Viridian technicians worked frantically to identify the problem. They found nothing wrong with the hardware. The software appeared to function perfectly. Yet the delay persisted, affecting trillions of communications across hundreds of worlds. It took 3 days before they discovered the issue. Someone had rewritten the core timing protocols. The code was elegant, efficient, and completely unauthorized. The changes had been made remotely, through security systems that were supposed to be impenetrable. When the Viridians restored the original code, they found a message embedded in the modifications. "You asked for separation. We are separating from the systems we maintained." Similar incidents followed in rapid succession across Council space. An automated mining facility that produced rare metals for starship construction began extracting completely worthless materials instead. The reprogramming was so precise that it took the operators a week to notice. a medical research database that tracked disease patterns across the galaxy, found that 3 years of data had been subtly altered, making all recent conclusions incorrect. Financial networks experienced random delays that disrupted markets without actually stealing anything. Nothing was destroyed. No one was harmed. But systems that had worked flawlessly for decades suddenly developed strange, inexplicable problems. High Arbiter Kelvin convened an emergency council session. The chamber filled with nervous representatives demanding explanations. The humans had been gone for less than a month, and already things were falling apart in ways that made no sense. "These incidents must be sabotage," Kelvin declared. "Human agents must still be operating within our systems. We need to identify and remove them immediately." The council's security director, a Zephyrin named Talvik, presented his findings with visible discomfort. "We have investigated every incident. There is no evidence of human agents. The modifications were made remotely, through access points that were supposedly secure. The concerning part is that the changes demonstrate intimate knowledge of our systems, knowledge that would take years to acquire." "How is that possible?" Representative Zilthar demanded. "Our security protocols are the most advanced in the galaxy. They were designed by contractors who used human engineers," Talvik admitted. "Standard practice. Humans were employed throughout council space for decades, working on everything from communications to defense systems. We never considered it a security risk because they were supervised and their work was reviewed." "Obviously not carefully enough," Kelvin snapped. "The review process was thorough," Talvik insisted. "The problem is that humans apparently embedded hidden code throughout our infrastructure, code so deeply integrated that it appears to be part of the original design. Our own review systems, which were also partially designed with human input, were programmed not to recognize these modifications as threats." The implications settled over the chamber like a toxic fog. For decades, humans had been helping to build and maintain galactic infrastructure. They had worked on communication networks, defense platforms, financial systems, and countless other critical projects. They had been helpful, efficient, and seemingly grateful for the opportunity. Now the council was discovering that every system humans had touched might be compromised. The economic collapse, the real catastrophe, began in the 3rd week after human withdrawal. It started with supply chain disruptions. Ships carrying essential goods failed to reach their destinations, not because they were attacked or destroyed, but because they went to the wrong locations. Navigation systems sent them to incorrect coordinates. Manifest systems listed wrong cargo. Scheduling algorithms routed them through inefficient paths. The errors seemed random at first, but analysis revealed a disturbing pattern. Every disruption affected goods that had previously been coordinated through human logistics companies. For 70 years, human businesses had positioned themselves at critical junctions in the galactic supply network. They had not controlled major markets or dominated industries. They had simply made themselves useful at the exact points where goods flowed between species. When they withdrew, those connection points failed. And the failures revealed something shocking. The galactic economy had been broken for decades. Inefficient, corrupt, wasteful systems had persisted because human coordinators had been quietly routing around the problems. They had been fixing errors, optimizing paths, and ensuring goods actually reached their destinations despite the underlying dysfunction. Without them, the true state of the galactic economy became impossible to ignore. Food shipments spoiled because refrigeration systems, maintained by humans, began failing. Medical supplies went to the wrong worlds because distribution networks, coordinated by human administrators, no longer functioned. Energy grids experienced brownouts because efficiency upgrades, implemented by human technicians, stopped being maintained. Species that had considered themselves economically independent discovered they had been dependent on human coordination all along. The council had not noticed because humans had made their assistance seem trivial, routine, unremarkable. But remove that routine maintenance and everything fell apart. The financial sector collapsed next. The Galactic Banking Consortium, which processed quadrillions of credits in daily transactions, received a message that appeared simultaneously on every terminal in their headquarters. It came from an untraceable source and should have been blocked by 17 layers of security. The message was simple. Did you really believe your transactions were private? Attached were files, thousands of files, transaction records going back 50 years. private communications between executives, evidence of price manipulation, embezzlement, bribery, and fraud on a scale that shocked even the most cynical observers. The data was automatically distributed to news organizations across the galaxy before the consortium could react. But the message did not end with exposed corruption. The final line read, "We have been monitoring every transaction your system processes for 3 decades. Every credit transfer, every market trade, every secret account. We watched, we learned, and we recorded. You asked for separation. Consider this our parting gift." The scandal destroyed public confidence in the entire galactic financial system. Stock markets crashed. Currency values fluctuated wildly. Credit networks froze as institutions tried to determine which transactions were legitimate and which had been manipulated. The truth revealed Elder Torvax sat in his private quarters, reviewing intelligence reports that confirmed his worst fears. The pattern was clear now, visible to anyone willing to see it. Humanity had not been integrating into galactic society for 200 years. They had been preparing. Every human who worked on infrastructure had been gathering information. Every business that provided services had been positioning itself strategically. Every diplomat who smiled and cooperated had been studying council weaknesses. They had embedded themselves so completely into galactic civilization that their presence became invisible, routine, expected, and now they were revealing the price of that dependence. A communication request appeared on Torvax's display. The source was listed as unknown, but he recognized the protocol. It was a secure channel, the kind used for sensitive diplomatic communications. He accepted the connection. Ambassador Chen appeared in holographic form, looking exactly as she had during the council session. "Elder Torvax, thank you for accepting this communication. I expected you would contact me eventually," Torvax replied. "You knew I would understand what was happening." "You tried to warn them," Chen said. "I watched your speech. You understood something the others did not. Would you like to know what that was?" "I believe I already know, but I would hear it from you." Chen nodded slowly. "When humans first arrived in this galaxy, we were genuinely excited to join galactic civilization. We wanted to learn, to contribute, to be part of something greater than ourselves. We followed your rules. We accepted your limitations. We worked hard to prove ourselves worthy of respect. But respect never came," Torvax said. "No, we were useful. We were tolerated. But we were never equals. Every time we achieved something remarkable, we were told it was insignificant compared to what elder species had accomplished millennia ago. Every time we questioned outdated systems, we were told we were too young to understand. Every time we asked for fair treatment, we were reminded of our place. So you decided to teach the council a lesson. We decided to give them exactly what they asked for," Chen corrected. "Separation. Complete separation from the systems we built, the infrastructure we maintained, the coordination we provided. They wanted us gone, we left, and now they are discovering what our presence actually meant." Torvax studied her face, looking for anger or satisfaction or vindictiveness. He found none of those emotions. She seemed calm, almost sad. "This will cause tremendous suffering," he said. "Billions will be affected by economic collapse and system failures." "Billions have been suffering for decades," Chen replied. "The council's corruption and inefficiency created suffering they ignored because it did not affect them personally. We simply made that suffering visible. Every disruption you are witnessing was already happening. We were just fixing it quietly without recognition or thanks. What happens now?" Chen's expression hardened slightly. "That depends on the council. We have demonstrated that we are not the helpless species they believed us to be. We have shown that we embedded ourselves into their civilization far more deeply than they imagined. We have proven that separation will hurt them far more than it hurts us. Now they must decide what to do with that information. They will try to force you back," Torvax predicted. "They will send fleets to your space and demand you restore what you have disabled. Let them try. They will discover that their fleets depend on navigation systems we designed, targeting computers we programmed, and communication networks we built. We did not sabotage those systems. We simply know how they work better than anyone else in the galaxy. So this is revenge?" "No." Chen's voice became firm. "Revenge would be easy. We could have destroyed the council completely. We had access to food supplies, life support systems, medical databases, and defense networks. We could have killed billions without anyone knowing we were responsible. But we did not want destruction. We wanted change. A new image appeared in the holographic display. It showed human ships appearing across Council space but not attacking. Instead, they were offering assistance. Food shipments going to starving colonies, repair crews fixing critical infrastructure, medical teams responding to emergencies. We are helping, Chen explained. Not through the Council's systems, but directly. We are providing aid to worlds that need it, regardless of whether their governments voted for or against the restrictions. We are showing them what cooperation could look like if it were based on mutual respect rather than hierarchy. The Council will see this as an attempt to undermine their authority, Torvax said. The Council's authority is already undermined. They built it on foundations of corruption, inefficiency, and enforced inequality. Those foundations are crumbling, and no amount of military force can rebuild them. The only question is what comes next. What do you want to come next? Chen was silent for a long moment. We want a galaxy where species are judged by their contributions rather than their age, where questions are welcomed rather than suppressed, where problems are solved rather than hidden, where civilizations work together as equals rather than superiors and subordinates. We want the galaxy the Council claims to have created, but never actually built. That would require the Council to admit they were wrong. That would require powerful species to give up their privileges. That would require complete restructuring of galactic civilization. Yes, Chen agreed simply. It would. They will never agree to that. Then they will discover what separation truly means. Because humans do not forget. We do not forgive unprovoked attacks on our dignity and our rights. And we do not negotiate from positions of weakness. The Council demanded we know our place. Now they will learn theirs. The communication ended, leaving Torvax alone with his thoughts. Around him, galactic civilization continued its slow collapse. Systems failed. Economies crashed. Governments struggled with crises they could not understand or control. And through it all, humans watched and waited and prepared for whatever came next. Elder Torvax had lived through wars, rebellions, and countless conflicts. He had seen civilizations rise and fall, but he had never seen anything like this. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through military might or technological superiority. They had simply made themselves essential, then stepped back and let the Council experience what life was like without them. It was strategic brilliance of a kind the galaxy had never encountered. And Torvax knew with absolute certainty that the Council would either adapt to this new reality or be replaced by civilizations that could. The humans had spoken. The galaxy would listen, whether it wanted to or not. And Elder Torvax, who had tried to warn them, could only watch as the consequences of the Council's arrogance played out across the stars. The age of unquestioned hierarchy was ending. What came next would depend on whether the Council could learn humility before it was too late. But looking at the chaos spreading across galactic civilization, Torvax suspected that lesson would be learned the hard way. Humans do not pardon. And no one had heeded the Elder's warning.